In this video, we'll be reviewing the solutions of the questions on the Chapter 4 quiz on quadratic functions and equations. Here in question 4, it's asking for the axis of symmetry. Remember, the axis of symmetry is the line that cuts the parabola in half. Now, that line crosses through 2 on the x-axis. So your axis of symmetry would be x equals 2. A lot of students got this one wrong because they put y equals instead of x equals. This next question is asking for the range of the graph shown. Remember, range, you usually use the letter y, and you're looking from bottom to top. So here we look at the bottom, we can see this graph's going to keep going down. If we look at the top, the highest it reaches on the y is 4. So the graph contains y values that go down from 4. Since it's down, we're going to use less than. So y would be less than or equal to 4 would be the range, because every point on this graph is going to have a y value of 4 or lower. So if you're looking at the answer choices, it would be the one that says all real numbers less than or equal to 4. This next question wants us to identify the vertex of the graph. And here we are given the formula x equals negative b over 2a. So I'm going to start by labeling my letters. So my a is 3, my b is negative 18, my c is negative 4. So for b, I'm going to plug in negative 18. And for a, I'm going to plug in 3. Some students got this problem wrong because they forgot to plug in that extra negative. So here there's actually 2 negatives, so it becomes positive 18 over 6 or positive 3. So again, if you forgot to put that extra negative, you might have gotten a negative 3, and that would have thrown your answer off. Now to get the y value of the vertex, we're going to plug 3 back into the original equation. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in 3. And from there, we're just simplifying using PEMDAS. So my y value is negative 31. So the vertex here would be 3, negative 31. In this next question, it said Jose solved the graph for the equation, or solve the equation below using the graphing method. So they want to know what are his solutions going to be. When you're using a graph, your solutions are your zeros or x-intercepts. Now a lot of students made this harder than it had to be. Here you didn't have to do any work at all. You just had to look at the graph and look for the zeros or x-intercepts, and those were your solutions. So here, one solution was at negative 3, the other one was at 1. Question 8 is asking us to factor this quadratic expression. This one's a trinomial, and it has an a greater than 1. So I'm going to set up my factors beginning with 10x. And then I start by multiplying a times c. So 10 times negative 4 is negative 40. And I'm going to set up my blanks. Blank times blank equals negative 40. Blank plus blank equals negative 3. I'm going to find out numbers that multiply to get 40. Once I have my list, I'm going to choose the two numbers that can also add or subtract to give me 3. That would be 5 and 8. And I want negative 3, so the bigger number 8 has to be negative. So I have a positive 5 and a negative 8. And I'm going to put those numbers in my factors. Now I'm not done. So some of you put this bottom answer choice because you didn't finish factoring it. Some of you put answer choice B because you forgot to put the 10x in the factors. From here, my extra step is to divide by a common factor. So in my first parentheses, I can divide by 5, and that becomes 2x plus 1. In my second parentheses, I can divide both by 2, so that gives me 5x minus 4. So my factors are 2x plus 1 and 5x minus 4. The next question was a little bit easier. We're factoring a binomial this time. So this one was a binomial. So we didn't have to do any fancy methods. Here we just had to look for the greatest common factor. If you look at the numbers, 6 and 24 can both be divided by 6. And both of those terms have an x, so we can also factor out an x. So one of my factors is 6x, and I'm going to work backwards by dividing everything by 6x to see what goes inside my parentheses. So 6 divided by 6 would be 1. X squared divided by x is x. 24 divided by 6 is 4, and these other x's cancel. So my factors are 6x and x minus 4. This next question says Yesenia is solving an equation using the factoring method. So she has this equation here. And they already said she rewrites the equation as x plus 5 times x plus 1 equals 0. They want to know what her solutions will be after she solves the problem. Here the problem is not solved yet, it's just factored. So a lot of students missed it because they put 5 and 1. But here we had to set each factor equal to 0 in order to solve. So here we would do minus 5. So our solution is negative 5. And here we would subtract 1. So our solution is negative 1. So the two solutions would be negative 5 and negative 1. Our next question is asking us to simplify, and it's subtraction. So when it's subtraction, remember you have to distribute that minus, and the signs change. So it's going to be negative 4 plus 5i, and that becomes minus 8 plus I. I'm going to put an imaginary 1 here. Now I'm going to combine like terms, so I can combine negative 4 minus 8, and I get negative 12. And I can combine positive 5i with positive 1i. That comes out to positive 6i. Some students got this one wrong because they just took away parentheses without changing the signs because it was a subtraction problem. Those of you that did that got negative 12 plus 4i as the answer instead. This next question is multiplication. So you would start by distributing 8 times 5, that's 40. Then 8 times 2i is positive 16i. Next, I'm going to distribute negative 3i times 5. That's negative 15i. And negative 3i times 2i is negative 6i squared. From there, we can start to make it smaller. I'm going to combine these middle terms. That becomes 1i. And here, anywhere we see an I squared, remember that's equal to negative 1. So you can plug in or substitute -1. -6 times -1 becomes +6. So now if I combine my real parts, 40 plus 6 is 46, sorry. And plus 1i, I'm just going to leave that 1 imaginary. This last question is telling us to solve using the square root method. So when you solve using the square root method, your goal is to first get your x squared by itself. So right now I need to get rid of that -3. I'm going to do +3 to both sides. Next, I'll divide by 5. So I get x squared equals -4. Now x squared is by itself. So to solve, to get rid of squared, I'm going to square root. Remember, when you square root, you can have two possible answers, one positive and one negative. Since it's the square root of -4, it's not just 2. Square root of 4 would be 2. But square root of -4, we have to put that I at the end because you cannot square root negative, so your answer is imaginary. So the correct answer here was C, because this really means x could be positive 2i or x could be negative 2i. Some of you got this wrong because you just did square root of 4 is 2 and wanted to put that second answer choice. Some of you saw a negative and wanted to put a negative in your answer. You can review this video again or look at the PDF to help you to do the makeup test or Math to bring up your quiz grade.